Attention, all curious minds, innovators, and trendsetters. It's time to pause, lean in, and get ready for an extraordinary journey as we dive deep into the fascinating realms of life, technology, entertainment, and business. Let's explore, learn, and grow together. Brace yourselves, for the next thrilling episodes of Hipther Talks is about to take off. Counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here we go.
Hi everyone, Zoltan here. We're back again with Hipther Talks, and we are sticking to cybersecurity and firewalls because, let's face it, this is something that has to be talked a lot for people to wake up, that those days about which we talked maybe 6-7 years ago are here. And a threat is everywhere. It's actually in your hand, on your mobile, everywhere. So it's great pleasure to have Martin Stoefler with us here. Hi, Martin. Nice to see you.
Hello, Sultan. Really nice to see you, and thank you for your invitation.
All right. So Martin, I haven't seen Martin since 6 years. We just talked about that before hitting the record button on our podcast. Last time we saw him was in Prague at our tech conference, and he has been very busy. So, but he will getting back to our conferences this year and next year again. But Martin, for those who don't know you, we have this tradition here that we like to give the opportunity for our guests to say a few words about themselves. So Martin, tell us a bit about your background.
Thank you, Zoltan, and thank you for the invitation to the podcast. This is actually my first time on a podcast. So,
oh, wow.
Yes, and a little bit nervous too. I've been interviewed, but this type of podcast, first time. Yes, a bit about me. So I'm part of the leadership team of OSM Solutions. We are a rather small, still bespoke IT security and consulting and compliance consulting company. We specialize in really high-end consulting, but that doesn't mean really expensive consulting or something. But we try to stick to projects that are rather, I don't like the word complicated, but that are either very time sensitive or the structure of our customers is complicated, and those kinds of things. So we are specialists, and we are in the business since 2017, and we are doing well, I think. And
that's good to hear.
Yeah, and we've just, I'm not sure if I didn't ask you, but if I may do some little self-promotion. We have just a month ago, we had, thank you, we had the launch of our first tool. So we are branching out a bit from consulting. We launched a compliance tool, and maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about it later. And yes, we are based in Vienna, Austria. And I don't know if you can see it in my face, but the summer has come, and I've already got burned a little bit. But yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. So Martin, because you have not shared too much from your story at OSM Solutions, so let's start with that. What inspired you and your partners, Oliver and Sebastian, to launch OSM Solutions in 2017, as you mentioned? Was there a particular aha moment that made you say, we need to do this ourselves, or what was it?
Good question. Aha moment was not really there. I think we were in the right place at the right time. So we knew each other for years and years beforehand. We have been colleagues at 2 different companies before we founded OSM Solutions. And I always liked the guys. And especially I was really tight friends with Oliver, and with Sebastian too. But yeah. So, and it turned out that when I moved back from Sweden, I've been there for a few years, 6 years or something like that. And at that same time, Oliver and Sebastian were working at a consulting company in Vienna, and they were simply ready for something new. And so we sat down and said, okay, what do you guys have any idea what to do? Are you just going to search for a new job, or what are you going to do? And then the idea of our own company grew. And we had some ideas for products. And so what we said is that we would do consulting in order to get to our own product offering. Yeah? Because obviously you need some money to let it develop, because we are IT security guys. And while we do know a little bit about development and we have all scripted a lot, we are not real full stack developers. Yeah. So that's why we had to earn some money first, and then we got to development, and today we are here.
All right. So I now know because I had the aha moment now about realizing what OSM Solutions means. It's Oliver, Sebastian, and Martin, right?
It actually is. Yeah. We say officially it's objective security management, but it is Oliver, Sebastian, Martin. Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. So yeah, cybersecurity is often seen as like tech only topic, but you guys talk a lot about trust, collaboration, and transparency. I remember your presentation in 2019 about how in the future smart devices from your home will be blackmailing you, like your fridge or your. I remember this, and this was 6 years ago. So. Why are those human values at center of your technical work? That's the main question here.
Well, maybe I just answered or a quick comment to your last comment. It has actually happened, right? There have been a few scandals where for example, it was not Roomba, but Roomba-like devices have mapped out the entire living space of customers, and this data was leaked en masse, and some other things, And we've seen, for example, the builder.ai, I can't remember. That actually were 700 Indian technicians, and so when you have 700 technicians, you cannot control the data as well as if it would be a real AI. Yeah? So there have been scandals, and it partly came true. I might have painted a little bit of too dark of a picture, but for the end consumer. But I do think that there will be more to come, especially now with the advent of big AI, And of course, the IoT area, so the control areas for industry systems and those kinds of things, they are under attack a lot, and you don't want, for example, your pacemaker to become hacked or to interfere, Okay, then you actually asked me about human values, right?
Yes.
So the thing here is that, how do I say this? I think that a lot of people, when we come into big projects, for example, ISO 27001 implementation, or the last 2 years, there was a lot of DORA implementation.
Yeah.
For the viewers, maybe don't know DORA, but it's a Digital Operations Resilience Act. From the EU, it's mandatory for all financial and insurance companies. And it's a good standard, but for a lot of companies, it's a bit of a doozy because it's long. It has over 300 requirements. It's very risk and supply chain focused, and it's very detailed simply. So it's hard, right? So you come in as an external consultant. Your boss or your boss's boss, whoever, tells you, "Oh, now this guy is going to come in, or these guys are going to come in, and they are going to change all the way we work," right? So that is what I try to avoid, because that builds anxiety with the people, especially if we talk about bigger companies where people have been working for maybe decades already. I see a lot that people are a bit hostile in the beginning because they fear about their jobs. But and that's why I always try to be as transparent and as open as possible. I want to bring the people into the boat of the project, and not come in and say, "Okay, this is shit, you have to change this and that," because that won't work. That might work on paper, and I've seen this approach from other companies, that they look at the documentation, and then suddenly comes a project plan on what needs to be changed and how to be changed. Yeah, that's not going to fly. There is the internal resistance of people is simply too big. Another thing is also that people are, I don't know what the English word for it is, but people don't really love change, or a lot of people don't, love it or embrace it very much, right? So that's a big factor. And from my experience, I personally think that a lot of people, especially in bigger organizations, they don't really get the big picture. They say, okay, but my process is secure anyway, or I have always done this way, and nothing has happened until now. And of course, this is especially in today's environment, it's just not the right approach, right? So
there's always there's always another layer of security needed.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of people hate on compliance, but the reality is that if you don't do compliance, compliance is the boring part, and I get that. Yeah, I personally find it not so boring, but I know a lot of people do. But without compliance and without compliance controls, everybody will simply do what they want. One department usually has super security, and they all have all the procedures, and they are really good. They are super technicians. Then the next one, they are not motivated. They have internally checked out of the company, or I don't know. They're looking forward to their holiday, whatever. And that's where you then have issues. And with compliance and KPIs and whatnot, you can actually mitigate this kind of thing.
Yeah. So coming back to the like consumer level in the general company, I took your advice back then, and when I got a mesh set up in the house, I created a separate network for the IoT devices to connect to that network. So if that network gets hacked, it will not influence anything else. So all the smart devices are connected to that one. And then I advise everyone, if you have the possibility to do this, to do it.
Yeah, that's actually excellent work. I would advise the people the same. And so are you one of those guys that have automated half the house, or?
No, some parts, some parts. I'm trying to automate many things because it makes life much easier. But yeah, I'm careful with it, of course, because you don't want to to get stuck with it.
Yeah. Especially now with the AI coming up.
Yeah.
I think just yesterday I read something about that. There has now been a study that a lot of people are being really reliant already on emotionally on ChatGPT. Specifically about ChatGPT. And then I read it because there was yesterday was an outtake of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And apparently on Reddit, people have gone bananas, saying, what should I do now? And I miss my friend and all those things. And I mean, it's cool that socially isolated people have somebody to talk to, but if you rely so much on an AI that's actually always encouraging you to do what you actually want to do, I'm not a psychologist, but it sounds a bit almost dangerous,
Yeah, regarding this, because it's a side topic about AI, I was listening to a podcast where they mentioned that it's like in the old days, you memorized phone numbers of people, right? So you did not have the agendas. And now with your smartphone, you actually don't need that anymore to memorize numbers. But if you do a test, you might not be able to memorize it anymore. Because you got used to it, that you don't need to memorize it. Your brain has like switched that part off. So you don't need to memorize it. And you will not be able to do that because that's something which you give away. And this is something that will happen with AI as well, because many people are giving away critical thinking, giving away many things that, like for instance, for getting to a result, you need to walk the steps and walk throughout, and during those steps you are learning. But if you get the results, the output, then you did not learn anything. You only know the output, and that's it.
So
that's
a scary.
It's scary. All right. So
I actually will have to try the phone number thing, because I haven't memorized the phone number in.
Try it.
I will.
And for our audience, try it as well. Make sure to send us your results. So, Martin, you've built a reputation around tailored and data-driven defense strategies, and in this world of one-size-fits-all solutions, what's the risk of treating cybersecurity just like a checkbox, not something that's important?
First of all, if you buy a solution, a technical solution, solely in order to become compliant to any standard, even if you get the certificate, it's always just a snapshot in time, right? It just says that on the 15th of February, this company was compliant to this and that standard. And a lot of times what we see, and we see this really with medium and big sized companies a lot, is that they buy some quite expensive, like, you wouldn't believe how much money people spend on security solutions. And then they hire a consultant or the company itself, they come in, they set it up. Ideally, they do some customization of the product or of the rules or what have you, right? And then it runs.
Yeah.
And nothing changes in the company. There is no security culture, right? So some poor schmuck gets told by his boss, okay, you're now responsible for this and that solution. Okay, good. Every day in the morning, he turns it on. Yes, there's data coming in. There are a lot of alarms, but they look okay.
You can skip them.
Yeah, exactly. You later, So you don't have a culture of security. And that's never going to work. Like I said before, I really believe in people knowing why they do something, because when they understand that it's not just so that we don't get, for example, this certification for the will of the certification or as its own reason, right? Or because the top management wants it for some reason, but that there is a reason behind it, because the market needs it, because the license needs it, because security needs it, then you have a much easier time getting those people on board, right? And so I believe before you go out, and also as a small company, obviously, before you go out and buy an expensive solution and then spend a lot of people days implementing them and what have you, you should really, really look at your own requirements. So if you take, for example, ISO 27001, there are in the 22 version, there are, I think, 93 requirements in the Appendix A, right? And they are still very, very high level. So what we like to do is that we go into a company, we do a gap analysis, right? Where we sit down and interview all the key players in the company. Then afterwards, look at the actual processes, because we now know how it's implemented, and we look at the former processes and policies. And then we can map out all the gaps and possible mitigation strategies. And then in this mitigation, what we do is we take, for example, if they want to go towards ISO, we take the ISO requirements and break them down to cover exactly the pain areas that they have. Yeah. So you really have to take these high-level requirements and put them on your actual problems, and you can absolutely reformulate, redefine those requirements, and still be compliant, right? Even better than compliant, be secure. And if you have done your homework like this, it's much easier to find a solution that actually fits your problem. A lot of those security tools, I think and believe, they try to do so much that it's even too much, or they try to do everything. And for this reason, they also cost an arm and a leg. But there are small vendors, there are even a lot of open source solutions that actually would fit your bill directly, but you didn't know that it could fit because you didn't know your requirements. So that's why I like to have a data and actually implementation-driven approach to security culture, basically.
All right. So let's also talk about the evolution of threats. because these have evolved in time. So what are the most dangerous there, or maybe overlooked cybersecurity threats today that companies still aren't taking seriously?
That is a great question. Overlooked. That is a bit of a complicated question because that's very much which size company we are talking about.
Yeah.
There are some small companies that work in areas that have an extremely high security need, finance, for example, and gambling and gaming. And those companies usually have a lot of the stuff on their radar, but a lot of small companies, they do very often the bare minimum because they think they are not a target, but then they scale up and suddenly they are 200 people and then they have basically security from day one, that's not going to work. So I think what a lot of smaller and medium-sized companies overlook are APTs still, so advanced persistent threats. That is basically when a whole team of experts, they attack you. They have one web penetration expert, they have a crypto expert, they have a infrastructure and communications protocol experts, all sorts of things that fit together, and it's very, very hard to defend against that. Also really, really hard. And we do some tests for this. There are some tests on the market. It's called red teaming, for example, or like Dora called it, threat-led penetration testing, right? They actually ask if you're a certain size of company in Dora, you are obligated to do that. But because of the complexity, people shy away from it. But the problem here is that, in my mind, we see and will, with the upcoming of AI, we will see much more state and independent actors, whole teams that are able to really, really do sophisticated attacks. And look at North Korea, for example. I think a pretty good amount of their GDP is actually based on hacking and on ransomware, on encryption of data and ransoming, that kind of stuff. And so I not really overlooked in my mind. It's not looked at enough yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense.
For example, Dora the EU did really well with Dora. Because I think big finance companies, they have the money, and they should really test for that. So they should really look at complex, multi-step exploitation approaches that leave them vulnerable.
All right. So you provide... sorry.
No, and for smaller ones, I think, because obviously a red teaming is quite expensive. A red team penetration test. The problem is that those state actors, they have all the time in the world and they have the budget.
Yeah.
So they can take 3 months, 6 months. If they then get 20 million out of the whole deal, that's fine. Obviously, small companies can't afford a real red teaming exercise, but that's going to be really problematic because the advent of AI is actually right now and much more in the future will enable small teams and or even single persons to really, really expand their penetration capabilities. Because, today's tech landscape, it's so diverse that in my mind, almost no persons exist anymore that knows everything. Yeah. When I was just starting out in IT security, I had a mentor, Christian Mock. He freaking knew everything. Every day I was amazed when I had a problem and he was like, that's there. You have to enable this kernel, blah, 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 blah. I was like, dude, how do you know this? But this almost doesn't exist anymore because there's so many products. There's so many, such a big threat landscape. But with AI, you can have 2-3 team members that are actually really, really focused on the area that you don't know that much. And that's scary, So there is a lot to be done, I think.
Yeah, this thing called vibe coding is definitely part of that.
Absolutely.
Because some AI models are very like sophisticated in helping you create some services, and that's also something that's not to be considered as a threat that AI will take over all jobs, because no, if you're creative, like you said, there are solutions that nobody comes up with, and somebody might come up and create it with AI quickly, maybe for internal use in companies, not just like sell it as a service.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's the point. The vibe coding thing, I find it quite fun and cool because you can really, it's like rapid prototyping in my mind. You can
exactly
going very fast. Like you said, I wouldn't deploy it necessarily.
Yeah. Okay, so you provide services like information security management systems, the ISMS, web application firewall deployment, and also provide endpoint security. So for those non-technical listeners out there, can you walk us through what a day in the life of your work might look like, and maybe point out from problem to solution?
Okay. A day in the life from problem to solution. I think I might start with what I actually do. So these days, I'm, like I said, mostly in the management area. So I do ISMS implementations, updates, gap analysis, those kinds of things. And especially what I almost specialize is if companies, and that happens more than you would think, suddenly find themselves in a situation where they have like 3 months until they need to be compliant for something, then they start scrambling from 10% to 90%, So what I usually do is that I actually identify the problem that I do by gap analysis. And in practice, how this looks like, I like to do it with Oliver because we have done so many together that we are a really, really good team. And in the morning, we decide by going this, who will do the documentation, as who will type, and who will do the
cool.
Yeah, the thing is that the role of the typer is actually much more demanding because you have to listen, you have to type only or to note only what's relevant, and the interviewer will also rely on you to actually think it through and post questions, And usually the one that does the notes also does the report. So there's a lot on the line, because nobody likes writing reports. So we would usually just show up at the company, have a coffee, have a nice chat, get to know the key players like the CISO, the compliance team, usually the CEO, CFO, those kinds of things. And then we would really get to work with the interviews. So we obviously pre-planned those interviews. And they are all between 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on the area. So technical is usually a bit longer. HR is a bit shorter because in my experience, they always already have processes. Their answers come like a pistol, And and then at the evening, so after 5-6 hours, we stop because more your brain does. It's not possible because you have to really get a feel for the company and ask the right questions because you want to avoid follow-up interviews, if possible, and you are just mentally dead, Then you go back to the hotel, and I'm really happy that Corona is over because, especially for the gap analysis, I like to do it person to person, face to face. I have done a lot during Corona. Just online, but I don't know. It's not the same. You don't get this personal connection with the people, and it's just harder, I think. And then you go to the hotel, and the one that has the documentation actually has to go through the documentation and make it, clean it up a little bit, and maybe add some more things. That's also the reason for the schnick, schnack, schnuck. And and that's a day. If you're talking about other parts of our team, for example, pen tester, that's a whole different story. For pen testing, we have a very, very strict methodology. and you have to stick to that, because pen testing is very different from red teaming, for example, or from what it used to be, the pen testing, so that where companies just came and said, "Oh, we are so secure. You try to break in, and once you're not capable of doing it, I will be able to show my boss that how good we are." These days, obviously, pen testing is you try to find all or you will never find all, but you try to find as many issues as possible, and you have to do a lot of multi-step things that you have to document, and so there's a real methodology behind it, and it's quite structured. Yeah.
This is so called the ethical hacking.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So your team is also involved in capture the flag events, which sounds very cool. But what does it actually entitle, and how does it translate into the real world protection?
How does it translate to real world protection? Not as much as you would think. So we do those CTF games simply because it's cool for the team, it's cool for team building, it's good to work together, and they are good fun. And they are puzzles, they are really just big puzzles with a definitive one or multiple definitive ways through the puzzle, which you have to solve then quickly. It doesn't really translate to day-to-day pen test work, for example, because it's once you have found the issue, then you stop, and you go on to the next puzzle piece, right? And we usually don't work under this time pressure, luckily. But yeah, to protection, it doesn't really translate. So it's a good exercise for our pen testers, especially in the area of red teaming and threat-led penetration testing, because again, usually those puzzles are designed that there are that you need, somebody who is excellent at crypto controls or cryptography, always a web pen tester, and you need different team members, and you get them really to cooperate very closely. So for that, it's really good.
All right.
Day-to-day work, it really.
Okay. So yeah, cyber compliance and regulations are a nightmare for many businesses, especially the smaller ones which don't have big teams to just like handle that part. So how do you help clients navigate this maze without losing sleep or sanity? Because I can tell you that we're now working on a project with an external company. And man, it's demanding. I don't have enough staff to delegate this stuff. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think it's even more demanding and more a maze for big companies, especially for older companies that I see this still a lot in 2025. Big companies that have 1,000 employees, they have gone the digital route 15 years ago, and still there is one poor schmuck sitting somewhere who has the head of security. It doesn't work. Yeah, so they have to change more than small companies, because in small companies, you first of all, depending on the area where you engage in the industry, you can usually just forget part of the requirements or of the areas, right? If you don't have, for example, a mobile product, then you don't need to think about this, right? Or if you, for example, don't have work from home, then it's much easier to secure your environment, and you probably have much easier time to doing data loss prevention, for example. So there's a lot of things that work in favor of small companies, and then we simply do a structured approach. It's we try to not overload any one team. We try to actually disturb the day-to-day work as little as possible, and we try to do as much for them, or try to take as much work off of them as possible, right? So we sit together with the specialists in the certain areas, and we usually come already with a plan, because we have been doing this for 25 years, right? we know what needs to be done in which area, and then we discuss with them which way they want to really go, and then we discuss, okay, we can do this and that for you. You then have just to do this part and this part, So we try to not disturb them or the day-to-day business, and we don't want people doing crazy overtime or anything like that,
All right.
And, so small increments is the keyword here in my mind. And of course, especially for small teams, we have developed Complify, right? So if any of your listeners is in a small team and, for example, doesn't have full ISMS yet or something like that, our tool is for free. We gift you a whole ISMS framework that we have developed, and we guarantee that if you implement all those policies and processes, you will be compliant to ISO 27001 2022 and will be able to go through an audit. Of course, you have to implement those things, yeah. And I think we have found a really innovative way to match what do you do and your evidence and actual paragraphs of your policies to requirements. So it's super easy to see where you have gaps, where you need to do more, and it has an audit interface, and it saves time and money, So it's all about helping the small guy, yeah.
All right. So from your work with penetration testing to gap analysis, how do you break the news to a client that their systems are let's say basically like Swiss cheese? And how do you balance urgency with reassurance? Because you might have clients that say, "No, it's not true."
Yeah, yeah, that's hard cheese. No, actually, I have seen all the stages of grief. I can't remember what they all are, but they are definitely
stages of grief. Oh my god!
Yeah, they are definitely anger. I've seen that. Usually not directed at us, but at some poor schmuck of the organization that actually has very often had no other way of doing it because they had no budget or whatever. I've seen denial a lot. I've been discussed with that this is not an issue because blah, blah, blah. We can absolutely discuss. It's usually that, I've been doing this for so long and this is my main work. I end up right, but not always, of course. And and at some point there's acceptance, right? People then usually accept it. But in reality, what we do is a different approach. We don't go into the organizations after a gap analysis and say, "Oh, Jesus Christ, what are you doing?" We try to do it a bit. I think like the cheese that you mentioned, the fact that your systems are super vulnerable is better discovered by oneself. They should discover that through our input that, there is really a problem. So what we do is that when we make, for example, a gap analysis report or an audit, we prepare a very detailed report, but we make at least 3 different versions out of it. So a very, very high level one for the top management and the board, where we just touch on what areas need improvement, and we always come with a plan, right? So especially for top management, we keep the mitigation explanation quite short. We say, okay, there are gaps in your data leakage prevention, and we think you should do this and that. And this will, for management, we usually also include that this will take our estimation, this and that many external and this and that many internal person days. Then we usually go to the team leads and to the next level of management beneath. They get a lot more details about their own area. But and then we like to talk to the actual people also involved, and they get all the details, And we simply present mitigation strategies, not problems per se. Of course, you have to mention that there is a problem, but we try to avoid that.
Yeah. All right. So let's also talk about future proofing. And what should companies be doing today to prepare for the cybersecurity threats of, let's say, maybe 1 year? or 2 years? Because they evolve quickly.
Yeah, that's a good question. So 5 years is hard to tell, especially since, I'm not the biggest, even though we have a AI or in reality machine learning enabled tool now. And I use some AI, especially, for example, Notebook LM from Google, right? I'm not the AI researcher, so I can only really see what I read in articles. And that is even already very scary, because like we talked before, that AI is getting better, and so the threat actors are actually getting better. So it's really hard to say what you should really prepare for. But I think the main idea is always resilience. You prepare as much as you can, and you prepare, for example, also your business continuity strategies, your recovery strategies, and your containment strategies. And I mean, really strategies, not only one process here and one process there, a real strategy on overarching strategy that includes communications, internal and external, that includes technical solutions, that includes communication protocols with your internal teams, those kinds of things, And the more resilient you are, the better you will be at first of all, not losing the trust of your customers, even if something happens, and also mitigate the impact of what happens. So, for example, if some of your edge hosts get hacked, but no PII as a personal identifier information or customer information is leaked, yeah, that's bad. But if you can prove that nothing really important has leaked, people will forgive you. It's because we see that with big companies all the time. Yeah. So resilience is the word. And of course, you stick to your PDCA cycles. So in security, it's plan, do, check, act, and most of the really good standards are really based upon this. So you never arrive. You're always in a circle. You plan what to do, you do it, you check your outcomes with KPIs, with whatever, and then based on what you see, you alter what you do. That's the acting part. And if you stick to that, you should be golden,
All right. So you are closer to being one step ahead than not being there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So finally, let's also talk about cybersecurity burnout, because that's real. And even among experts, we actually seen a couple of cases.
Yeah.
So what keeps you motivated, and what's your why for showing up every day in this, we can call it high stakes field, because it is.
Absolutely. I see that, because like I mentioned before, during the COVID era, when we were all sitting at home, I got a little burned out. Yeah, it's I did not like the online only type of engagement. Of course, we had to do it, but I was really at the point at the end where I thought, yeah, maybe look for something else or whatever. But when we got back to face-to-face, my passion actually came back. Yeah, and so what keeps me motivated even after almost 25 years is actually, I'm in a great position that I can go into companies when they really need help. Our customers come to us that, like I mentioned before, we have that not all the time, but continuous, that companies come to us. We need in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, we need to be compliant to this or that, or they come to us, we had an audit and it looked really bad, and we fear that we get backlash from that, from customers, from licensing houses, from whatever. Yeah, and then we come in, and if you build those relationships in those long-term projects, it's first you start out with strangers, and but some of my customers, and especially the CISOs that I usually work very closely with, they are more friends than anything else now. And it's really nice to see that you can help out the company, and they are usually very, very thankful for that. Just end of last year, I had a DORA implementation project where the head of the board was very much involved, which is very seldom, and I really, really liked. And he was so thankful that we made it to the audit deadline, and then that KPMG did a big audit for DORA of them, and they were really impressed what they saw, and that's really rewarding for me, I have to say, because of course this company did a lot of the work, yeah, but of course I did a lot of strategy work and policy work and those kinds of things, and to see that succeed is really cool, yeah. And the people in the companies are really thankful too, because especially when it comes to licenses and stuff, if you get a license suspended, that can really, really quickly become really threatening for the company. And then if you go in, they are really happy. It was, for example, quite a few years ago, I did a project in Ireland, in Ennis, it was called, a gorgeous little town. And there was one of the main job provider companies in the area was a payment company, a small one.
Oh.
I think 75, 80 employees, and it's a small town, Ennis, yeah. And they had a breach, and then they were given by the PCI Commission. They were given, I think, 3 months to fix it, or 2 months.
Oh.
And they actually were suspended from business. So they could not take payments anymore. And you cannot believe they put me up in the best hotel in town. It was connected to an Irish pub. I was almost a bit of a celebrity there, because everybody in this town knew somebody who was working there, and they were all scared shitless, And so from the day I arrived, everybody knew was this the guy that's helping them,
Oh, yeah. And, keeping our jobs.
Exactly. And then when we actually succeeded, so we changed a lot with the workings, and then they made the audits, so that they got the license back. I got actually a video from those guys from the office thanking me and blah blah blah. So people are really thankful if you can really help them out. So that for me avoids quite a bit of burnout,
Yeah, that gives you energy. So,
yeah,
Martin, thank you so much for your time. It was great to catch up like this, and we look forward to seeing you at our conferences. And yeah, to our audience, make sure to reach out to Martin. You can find him on LinkedIn or just go to their website. And yeah, take good care, everyone. And make sure to keep that firewall running.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zoltan.
And that's a wrap for this section of Hipther Talks. Thank you for being a part of our journey today. Don't forget to tune in next week for more insights and discussions. Stay connected with us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and more. Until then, keep exploring and keep growing. We'll see you next time.